Hey there, back again. I thought I wanted to share, just on the end of sharing about my own journey, about the things that really helped me heal, of all the things that I've done and all the things that I think helped me, apart from obviously the ones I talked about in the first two videos. The theories, the things that you do in therapy that really take you to the next level. Obviously, the first one is finding someone you can be really honest with. And that's a choice, to be honest. It's a choice that you are so done with where you're at, and it could be anything. And I find a lot of people who come for therapy actually come because they realize there's this real disconnection between how they think and how they feel. For example, someone will come in and go, life's pretty good. I have everything I want, but I don't feel right. There's something missing. There's something not right inside of me. And they might have very successful lives on the outside, but they feel this incongruence within them, this kind of mismatch, this disconnect, this, I look really good from the outside, and the front door, as we've talked about before, looks successful, accomplished, happy, confident, but actually there's this part of me that doesn't feel that way. A lot of people might call that imposter syndrome. You feel like an imposter, like someone's going to come and find you out, and who do you think you're kidding? You're not really good at this job. Or, I think a lot of famous actors, I've heard them say it, they're thinking, I remember Renee Zellweger said she was waiting for someone to, come and say, actually, you can't act at all. And she felt often like an imposter. And I think some people feel like an imposter in their own lives, because on the front, you look happy, content, enjoying life. And this is true, because a lot of people, they present as funny and happy and laughing, and behind closed doors they're actually quite sad and depressed, and they put on a good front, they put on a good facade, or they play the part well. And I think that is kind of a conditioning that we've all had, be okay, be happy, laugh, smile. It's something we've all learned to do, probably along the way. And so what helps us become more congruent within ourselves, more authentic, in alignment? Because I think a lot of people are, that their heads are here, I'm doing really well and life looks good, but behind the closed door they're struggling, they feel depressed, and they come in and say, I shouldn't feel this way, and I don't understand why I feel the way I do. And they're frustrated with themselves because they see their lives are good, they see they have everything, but on the inside it feels very different. And so for me, a lot of working with someone is about helping them create a more authentic stance towards life, as opposed to this, look okay on the outside and then on the inside you feel very mismatched. So out of alignment. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, and especially people that really feel like they haven't had anything really bad happen to them. And I totally would have been in that sense. It wasn't like anything totally distressing happened to me. I think just being brought up in a seen and not heard environment is traumatic. What's the biggest form of abuse is neglect. So I think people don't understand that. So for me, it was, I had a house, I was in a home where my parents were together, and they worked very hard, but I wasn't seen or heard or understood or even respected. And I think back in the day, children weren't. Children were just, ignored for the most part, told what to do, what to think, and that was just the way of the world. I'm not blaming anyone. And so as I went through that journey of recovery, it was about being seen by that higher, for me it was a higher perspective, a higher entity, if you want, a higher source, call it whatever you want. It was being seen, it was being heard, it was being understood. And along the way, I met some amazing people who saw me and understood me and helped me, reflected something more positive back at me. And therefore, I could see myself in a more positive light. And so doing my recovery in a church environment obviously was huge. Finding a partner that was very loving and kind and accepting and unconditional, even when I acted badly and, wasn't very nice, he still loved me. And I was very blessed. But in regards to therapy, I think some of the most powerful therapies were definitely person-centered, which is sitting with someone that's very caring and kind and unconditional in their positive regard. It was key. And so all these things I learned along the way, which was fantastic, of what really helps create an environment of healing, was to be very present with that person, to be there with them in it, to be listening without judgment, to hearing without criticism, to actually be seen, to create a safe space. So that was, the first thing that I learned and took on board: how to listen, how to encourage someone to talk at a deeper level. These are all skills I learned along the way. But some of the theories, particularly I think CBT, is learning to think. I don't think you can think yourself out of pain, and you don't process emotions or wounds through your head, but learning to think. I think a lot of us haven't been taught how to think. We've been told what to think. Growing up in schools, it's not until you get to university, I think, that thinking is more encouraged for you to be more objective and see this side and that side and look at things more objectively. So I think uni was very good for me because I had to start thinking, and I'm a feeler, so kind of thinking doesn't come as easy. So, there's the thinkers and the feelers. Because I was a feeler, I had to learn to think more intelligently, think more about things, think through solutions, look at the different aspects, the different sides of, so when you write a paper, you're writing a paper of for and against, and that helps you think on both sides, because, and so that was really powerful. So CBT is always a good one. I don't think you can, I would never do something all of that, because, that we call it purist. Just do CBT. I think that's a great aspect, and I do utilise that. Gestalt therapy was empty chair work. I think for me, that was one of my most amazing experiences. I actually, when you're in uni and doing these things, you actually help other students do their assignments. And a friend of mine asked me to come and be her client for a Gestalt therapy empty chair work that she was doing. And we did this empty chair and on a real situation that I was struggling with, and it was so profound. And I think I cried the whole way through it, and it was amazing. It was really, truly amazing. So that gave me the experience of, wow, this works. It wasn't, I think, an easy therapy to do. I think you have to be quite brave to do that with clients. It can be very confronting, and it's very real in the moment. And very present work. So, you're actually sitting with someone who's actually evoking a lot of emotion sometimes. So, but very powerful. So Gestalt therapy is CBT. ACT therapy is acceptance and commitment, which I thought absolutely fantastic therapy. I use a lot of that. It utilises diffusion from thought. You're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, you are the observer. And I think that is an amazing therapy that you can, and I loved it, even though they didn't teach it. I actually studied it privately, and I had to do a presentation, and part of that was talking about ACT therapy, which I think is one of the most profound therapy. It covers quite a few aspects. So narrative therapy, storytelling, thickening the story is kind of a whole process of how your life is like a story that you tell, and if you might keep, I mean, I did definitely, I told this story of woe is me, and no one cared, no one loved me, and there was no one there for me, and I told that story for a long time, and I changed that story, because actually as you heal, your story does change. I looked back with very negative eyes and saw a very negative past, but actually as I healed in the present, when I look back, I didn't just see the dark moments, the bad times, I saw the good times. And in fact, now, years and years later, I actually realized, I did have a fantastic childhood full of lots of wonderful experiences and memories, but they were hidden for me when you're in so much pain. And I didn't even see them. All I saw was the negative. So changing your story, powerful therapy, which helped me. Hakomi is a body somatic sensory kind of therapy. So that's another therapy, Hakomi, where you sense sensations in your body and you work with them, you move through them. And all of these therapies I've used, I take a little bit of everything and incorporate it into what I do with clients. They're the big ones, I think. I did get taught a lot of different therapies and modes of working with people. And one of the big ones for me was rewiring mind and body, mind and emotions, Genevieve Milne, which I work with a lot of people. That was a whole sort of course that I did, so I could actually do that whole thing, which I do utilise, definitely working with clients. More recently, Judith Richards, I think she's TRTP therapy. I went and did some short sort of courses with her. You can study a whole course with her. It's obviously not cheap, and I actually spent quite a bit on my education so far. But the things I learned from her, very powerful. Someone who'd actually been through so much and had created her own way of working with people that basically was so much more effective than what they were utilising in hospitals, and she was actually doing some amazing work. So that was really, really powerful. Learning all about your conscious and unconscious or subconscious, because you realize you have been conditioned and programmed. We all have, in those first 7 years when you're in that sort of hypnotizable state of being, and monkey see, monkey do. So whatever you see, you get templated. Understanding how we develop our personalities, our beliefs, our what drives us. And for me, I don't work with symptoms. I think that's a medical-based model where you come in, if you are depressed, you might just work on thinking more happy thoughts. For me, that's not where it's at. For me, it's about learning what drives those unhappy thoughts. And a lot of that is what you were conditioned to believe about yourself early on. And the ego mind identity will override that, because the ego has to be developed. It has to be developed. So you formulate an ego based on survival, based on trying to get through life, as we've all done. And it's about, we create an ego in the first half of life, and then we learn to realize that we can actually deconstruct that ego and become who we really are. And that's why I think the best time to work with people is in that 36, 37, like that 30s range, because that's when a lot of people will realize, that's when I realized that I had been conditioned to believe certain things about myself and who I was and the role I played in the world and what I was capable of, and that I had outgrown that ego. And that's the painful part about waking up, having a breakdown, emotional breakdown, spiritual awakening, call it whatever you like, midlife crisis, a lot of people. And it's because you want to experience yourself in a different way. And so I'm just checking the time. Experience yourself and being someone instead of being the person you were conditioned to be, being the person you actually choose you want to be. And that's a very different way of living. And I realize that is not an easy journey. And waking up, growing up, maturing, deconstructing a ego identity is probably the most painful, hardest thing you do, because along the way you not only lose aspects of yourself, the self that perhaps doesn't work for you anymore, but you might actually lose other people around you, that relationship, even people who aren't treating you respectfully or kindly. And so it is the journey of deconstructing feels like annihilation. It feels like a death of sorts, and it is a death of sorts. It's death of the ego. So the ego that you had to create to survive. But I think it can be made less painful by really good therapeutic support, by someone who's been there, done that, come through it, out the other side, living life on their terms. So I think finding yourself a good therapist is sometimes really key. It's hard to do on your own. It really is. And your friends and your family have their own agenda, and they won't be objective. And I think that's the problem, because reaching out for help and support is really powerful if you can do it. And I suppose this is why I'm doing the videos, because I think a lot of people won't. They can't, for whatever reason. Maybe they can't afford to. And for me, I only take clients who are referred. I don't actually advertise at all, because I realise people who refer them to you are already halfway there. They know someone personally who's had a good experience, who has been helped, and hopefully they're seeing the fruit of that person's labours and seeing that they have changed, or they're healing and they're growing and expanding. And it doesn't always look pretty sometimes. You especially if you've been doing this, you might flip over to doing that before you come back into the middle ground. And so I just wanted to share some of the things that I think really help me, and that might help you. You can do a bit of research into all those kind of therapies, so CBT, ACT therapy, ACT, Gestalt therapy, which is empty chair work. Obviously, a lot of these therapies have more involved, but I'm just taking the interventions out of each one that I utilise and have found really helpful. And when you do a bit of research, you will connect. You'll see it done maybe, or you'll read about it and you'll go, oh man, maybe that's what I need to do. Hakomi, Hakomi, narrative therapy, and they're all amazing therapy. A lot of people might do it in a purist way, which I think can be a bit restricting, but go with the flow. If it's your story that you want to focus on and restory your story, then maybe a narrative therapy would be good. If you have a lot of resentment and anger, empty chair work can be very powerful. I utilize it all the time. I think it's just one of those profound therapies. A lot of people don't want to do it because it evokes a lot of emotion, and a lot of people are very allergic to their emotions. So just be aware of that. You do have to be able to manage those emotions somewhat. If they trigger you too much that you just want to run out of the room all the time, then you've got to ease into that. But there's so many things that you could go look at and find out, and do your own research, Anyway, I will leave it there for now, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. If you do find this interesting or would like to share it with someone, please do like and subscribe and all of that, and so I can reach more people. And if you want to ask me anything, please do. Okay, bye for now.